All right, good afternoon, those of you who are attending. Uh, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, most people end up watching the video rather than attending these, but I still like to do them, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed and show you what I'm up to. This, as you know, this is a webinar Unleashing the Power of ACS Investor Software, and I'm rebuilding my files and getting everything I want the way I want it, so it's just easier. Now, what I've decided to do with this webinar, normally I show more on the screen. Last time I didn't. I went to this resolution where I'm magnifying a little bit more. I can't get as much on my screen, but I think it's a lot easier for people to read once they're doing or watching the videos rather than looking at real small symbols. This is a little bit better. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. I've created a new structure. I've moved things around. I see Mike McDonald's on. He suggested that it might be a little easier to consolidate some of this information because it is overwhelming. I'm the first one to admit it. So I'm restructuring everything and I'm getting close. My standard views, as you may know by now, let me get an arrow here, is I'm showing the days since a crossover up and down on the 3 and the 6, and the same with volume point of control, and I've moved the relative strength over to this part along with Kirkpatrick relative strength. And from looking at a lot of stocks over the years and even recently with the program, I came to the conclusion that, and we've known this for years, but I had to prove it to myself again that relative strength is one of the most powerful things that we can look at. And now I'm combining that with VPA signals over here on the right. Now on my screen, in the normal resolution when I'm looking at this, I can see a lot more information, but I think this will suffice for the video. So these are the main things as I go through this: relative strength, VPA signals. Groups are important, very important, but I found that the group strength and the ERG is not as important for finding some of these stocks. Now, there are always exceptions, but a lot of times if we just concentrate on stronger stocks, especially when they're pulling back, we can get into some of these stocks with lower risk and the momentum is already to the upside. Now, Jesse Livermore made the statement that if you can't make money with leaders, you shouldn't be in the market. So that's kind of what I'm basing this on too, and my own observations. Okay, let me clear those arrows out of here and just show you my structure. I'm going to go in here, and these are my major market analysis groups that I'm using. I got rid of a lot of stuff which I was never using, and I still have that file if anybody really wants it, but I don't see any reason to have all that information. It just gets more confusing. So here I'm starting with the Major Markets Plus, major ETFs, broad market indices, major industries, indexes, industries and sectors, and so on down the list. Now you don't have to go through all of these. Now right now I have my intraday quotes turned off. This is the way the market looked last night. So I'm just going to go in here, and where I begin in the morning is I go to top-down process views for index and ETF analysis. And of course, as you know, I always bring the NASDAQ composite up. Now I have turned this off for the intraday quotes and rebuilt my indexes. So this is what the market looked like last night, and I can immediately tell by sorting on raw combo that the Bitcoin Investment Trust was up yesterday The Ultra VIX was up. Small caps, 600 and 400 are up. The Dow was up and so on. Most of the market was pretty strong yesterday. And then I locate the NASDAQ. Oh, I'm on intraday. I'm sorry. You have to go to end of day to get the NASDAQ to come through. Because during the intraday, if the NASDAQ is up, it's not correct because the advancers, decliners, and so on are not really put in the database until the end of the day. I'm just going to do this quickly and show you what I look at every day. I start with one of these NASDAQ charts right here. I'm just going to do number 1B right here, and this is my go-to chart, as you all well know. And the reason is because it has this information, volume information, of course, advancing versus declining issues, advancing versus declining volume, new highs, new lows, and then here's the AD line down here on this one. Now, I'm going to just draw a couple of quick lines on here. Actually, let me zoom out on here. I always try to get a feel for what the broader markets are doing. Let me do an alternate 2 here. I went too far there. So I don't show, in that image I show during the day, I don't show all of this information. I just show a little bit. But every now and then I will go out like this and I'll draw trend lines. Now, this is something I learned from a book by a guy named Vic Sperando. What he does, he would draw these trend lines from the lowest low before the highest high, and then he would alter them as the highs change. So at this point right here, here's where we are. Here's the lowest low before the highest high, and then from that point, I just took it out again. Lowest low before the highest high right here. And this morning I said the short-term trend line was broken, and I consider this a short-term trend line. This is intermediate, and this is long-term. You can see the long-term trend, if I would have extended that all the way to the right, is clearly up. Short-term is down, and the intermediate term is up. Now, if this support area in here is broken, then it changes again because this would form a lower low. But I don't need to get into all that. I just want to show you how I look at these charts with trend lines. It just puts things in perspective. Okay, let's get rid of that. Anyway, getting back to this, and I'm going to switch charts. I'm going to go back to just a regular chart here. I've got the white. I want to use the black. So I can just leave this sorted on raw combo. This is major markets. These are major ETFs and ETNs. I know that these are sorted according to the percentage price change. I can see the relative strength of each one of these ETFs, both ACS IRS and Kirkpatrick RS. And then I can look over here and I can see if there were VPA flags. This is yesterday's VPA. And this is a prior day, so that's high yield bond shares. I don't want to bring that up, but like this one right here, small cap spider, small cap portfolio. 2 days ago, there was an effort to rise and nothing yesterday, but let's bring it up. So here was that effort to rise. I know that a couple of days ago that there was strength coming in to this group, and it just shows up here. I think you'll find that as you work with these views, when you incorporate the percentage price movement and these crossover on the 3 and the VPOC, you'll have a real good sense of what the markets are doing. Now notice yesterday, and remember, this is turned off. These are not updating right now. All these zeros mean that all of these ETFs crossed to the positive side. The 3 crossed above the 6. Right down here, if you look at this, you can see the green went above it as it pulled back, and it is starting to go up. Now, this QQQE is the NASDAQ 100 equal weighted rather than market cap weighted. I like to have it in here because it kind of shows what the NASDAQ 100 looks like if it's not market cap weighted. Okay, so taking this further, I just go down here and I can see where the strength and weakness was. Yesterday, the transports were up. Now look at the transports here. The transports crossed 18 days ago to the upside on the 3 crossing the 6, and the VPOC crossed 19 days ago. Day before yesterday, there was an effort to rise, nothing yesterday. But when I bring this chart up, and I'll put a crosshair on here, you can see where the transports started moving up, and that's reflected in that column. That's why I continually harp on using those columns to see where the indexes, stocks, ETFs, what their status is compared relative to the 3 and the 6, and also the volume point of control. So right here is when the transports started moving, and they had a little pullback, but they haven't really looked back. Now, from these indices where it says index, I know I can just change and go down one level, and I can see where the strength was yesterday. Here's Old Dominion. It crossed 3 crossed the 6 10 days ago, and the VPOC crossed 11 days ago. If I bring that chart up right here, you can see the effort to rise. When you see a big move like this with the effort to rise and the 3 crossing the 6, you can get trapped here, but it's a good sign when there is a move like that, especially when it's confirmed with an effort to rise. But you can see how helpful this information is here. Now Delta, let's take a look at Delta. This was 30 days ago it turned positive. And where was that? That was clear back here, and guess what? There was another effort to rise as this stock shot up the 3 going up through the 6. VPOC turned positive a day or two before. Now, you can get scalped here. You know, here's the move, and then you get in short-term profit taking, and then it took off after that. So I'm standardizing pretty much on these views. I like to have these VPA signals right here in front of me for the past 2 days. I think that's very helpful. Okay, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to take you down through all of these. You can do this on your own, but there's a sectors. Here's sectors by industry. Communication index here. This is by industry. If you change to the index, then it takes you down to the industry groups under the sector. So you can prospect from there if you want to. Here's the industries. Cruise lines were the top group yesterday. You can see only one day. It had only started going back up 1 day ago with the 3 crossing the 6 because there was a little correction on the group. And then yesterday it started going back up again. These work for indexes too, not just for stocks and ETFs. So the original breakout was back here. 2 days later, there was an effort to rise. Volume pocket pivot. The VPOC was already positive, and this group has gone on a major run, along with the airline group. Let's see, aircraft and parts index, number 2, and so on. But once again, you can just look down here and see the number of days since a crossover. You can sort on this to find groups that are crossing over the 3 and the 6 and the VPOC. You can do this very quickly. but I do it just to get a feel for what's going on. Now, see, I've resorted and I can't go back now. That's ghosted. So what I have to do is I would go back here, click on this. No, I didn't want to do that. I want to go back all the way to the major market analysis groups, and then I would just have to start and work my way back down. But if I hadn't resorted, I wouldn't have that problem. Anyway, there's ETFs and everything in here. I don't want to spend any more time on that. I think probably the goal of this, my goal of this webinar series is to eliminate a lot of that going top down and looking at individual charts like that. And we can do that with much of it with user smart groups. But still, if you want to get a real feel for the markets, that's the way you do it. You start here, you sort on this, you look at it at the end of the day, and you can see where the strength and weakness was, and then you just start working your way down the tree. It works really well. Okay, any questions about that? Thanks, Robert. But you have to start at the top. You like the resolution better, Carrie? Okay, good. All right, so let's move on. That's a new structure. I've already told you that if you subscribe to the files, they're available for download. I'm looking at a list right here. Okay, I just covered the advantage, parts of the advantage of the layout. I have more to do here. So let's get into that. Okay, so here's the top-down process for index and ETF analysis. For ETF analysis, these are for the HGSI indexes. I do want to show you one more thing here. I'm going to go down to the broad market indices, and if you open this up, number 3, number 2 is intraday. You can see there's nothing there right now, and number 3 is demand supply. This shows the advancing issues versus the declining issues on anything that says symbol. So you can tell immediately the breadth of any one of these indexes on for the overall market. This is counting every index in here and going into the primary index. I can see that 14 of these groups are up and 4 were down, 77.78 were advancing, and only 22% were declining. So yesterday was a pretty strong market day, and I can tell that instantly. Okay, volume wasn't anything to write home about, but here's where the strength was. Okay, now let me get out of here. On this HGSI index analysis, price change, groups that are over 100K, HGS index is up today. If I go into, I'm going to go into the industry groups. I can quickly tell what the strength was. There were 90 groups up today and only, 85 down. Yeah, it was pretty well split. And that was reflected in the advancing issues versus declining issues. So these are just quick ways to read what's happening in the groups. Okay, this is intraday, so I don't have intraday going. I can't show you that. Okay, let's go in. And I want to go in and turn on my intraday, enable intraday options. I'm just going to manually go to it, and let's update the intraday now. So I'm pulling the intraday quotes out of Thinkorswim. And I'm going to show you how I do some more market analysis at the end of the day. I wanted to get the intraday updated too before I do that. Okay, and then I'm going to go in Now, the way the industry groups were that I showed you, that's the way they were at the close of the market yesterday. Now, but when I now go in and select industries here and select rebuild indexes and groups, this is going to reflect the industry groups as they stand right now because I'm building them from the updated stock and ETF information. Doesn't take long to do this. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to rebuild my user smart groups. This takes about 30 seconds normally when I'm not recording and so on. It might take 40 seconds now. Okay, it's almost done. I think it is done. Okay, now I'm going to go to all securities because I'm going to click back through to the warehouse views. And then in my analysis at night, I have rearranged these. Notice where it says apply to all securities. Stocks and groups up and down, Woodward and Brown smart groups. These are the groups that have been around for nearly 20 years. For stocks and groups moving up and down, they've worked great for all of that time. Now see, you have to go down a couple of levels, but it's just much more organized. So I'm going to click on stocks and groups moving up smart group, and the industry here, I should have done this before I updated the industries, but the industries here reflect what's going on right now. And I made a mistake there. I should have not done that because what this is going to do, this one right here, okay. This one right here, yesterday the cruise lines were at the top of the list. I messed up. I should have taken you through the whole process, but you'll forgive me for that, I'm sure. Anyway, this stocks and groups moving up, let's just pretend that this is last night. The aircrafts and parts, that was the number 2 group, so I can tell that these are still moving today, but I just go down through this quickly and look at this. I don't want to take the time to rebuild the groups I would show you. I'll do it next time. But you just go down through these very quickly and it tells you what groups were up the most from the Woodward and Brown end of day smart groups. And then these same groups, I can click on intraday and I can see which of these stocks are following through today. And if it's positive, it's going up. Let's look at ARC Best here. This is one of those trucking stocks, I believe. Here's the way it stood last night. High, wide, very high. It crossed over 2 days ago. And the relative strength is 85 and 85, which is good. It's a trucking industry, industrials. Here's the industry as of today, not last night. And normally, when I have the resolution the way I usually use it, I can see all this information at once. But ARC Best did not have a VPA signal last night. But the day before, it had an effort to rise. And I know it crossed over. So let's just look at that chart. And here it is. On the crossover, look at that move up with that effort to rise, and it's following through again today. On that same day, you can see there was a volume pocket pivot and the volume point of control also turned positive 2 days ago. Remember, 0 is a crossover day. You know that by now. I've said it so many times. But so 2 days ago would have been right here, and that's when it showed up. And if you were tracking these intraday, you may have been able to get on. Now, how do you do it intraday? Well, I'm going to get to that. Anyway, I wish I hadn't rebuilt those groups, but that's All right, I'll review it again next time, or in my next video that I send out, I'll do it. Anyway, these are the ones that are moving down. So I have up and down, intraday. These are 1 to 15 and 1 to 15 intraday. So the ones that are in most demand on the intraday come to the top of the list. Here's Pure Cycle Technologies. Crossed over 6 days ago. Must have had a pullback because the VPOC only crossed over yesterday. The RS rank is 93. Let's take a look at it. There was an effort, not an effort to rise. Let me see if I can move over there. This is why I like to see the whole screen. Now, if I can move this. Okay, so there is an up bar closing near the high and a test for supply before that on this Pure Cycle. Let's look at it. Okay, so here is a crossover gap up. Here is getting scalped if you chased it. Here is a low volume test. Here's a confirmation of that test with an effort to rise. Both of them occurred on this day, but here's your first indication that support is coming back in. And I said there must have been a pullback on the VPOC because it only crossed over yesterday. If you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that that's when it crossed over after the pullback. So you can get a lot of information just by looking up here at these views, and this is why I did it, why I'm standardizing on this view. Relative strength is very important, as I said. The VPOC's important, and I like to see what the groups are doing too, and that information's here, 1 day and 5 days. Okay. Now the next one, I don't have to go through this one, but all it is I capture the groups that are moving up intraday and they go into this one. It's called stocks and groups up and down. No, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong one. I'm going to B. I'm looking for B. Moving up and down user smart groups end of day. So these are actually the stocks and groups captured at the end of the day for the stocks and groups that are moving up intraday. And remember, I just rebuilt the user smart groups, and the reason I want to do that is I can see what stocks and groups are moving up now. Just like that trucking stock we looked at, it more than likely it appeared in this group right here 2 days ago, because this is current information as of my update, 5 minutes ago. So where is the strength today? The industry, this is sorted on industry percentage price change 1 day, and since I rebuilt the industries, I know that these industries right here are current. Greenbrier Railroad Rolling Stock is up, as is Trinity Industries. If we look over here, you can see that yesterday volume was low, spread was below average, it closed at the mid, but this has been positive for 19 days, as has the volume point of control. The relative strength is okay, 73 and 86. Look at the percentage price change today, 30%. And let's scroll to the right here, no VPA signals the past 2 days. So let's look at it. Well, obviously has to be news on this. So I'm going to get more info from the web. We'll go to bar chart first and see if anything's there. I need to log in to get rid of my ads. Let's see, that's Thursday the 29th. That's today. What is it? What do they mean, chugged? Oh, I see a railroad connotation. Earnings. So, you would be alerted to this early in the day. I mean, if you want to chase, it's there. And you can see this crossover clear back here. Let's put that on here. Gonna get an arrow here. You can see the crossover there. Volume coming in. What do we have here? We have an effort to rise. Here's the scalp the next day. And then an effort to rise again. And it really hasn't looked back. You have to be careful here. You know, these, a lot of times, or most times, I can't say most times, but a lot of times you're going to get scalped. You just have to hang on if you're in a stock here and it pulls back. Give it a day. 1 day pullbacks really don't mean that much usually. Okay, I got to erase that, get back up here so I have control. So anyway, this is why I do this intraday, so I can see what's going on. That's why I rebuild the user smart groups. Why wait till the end of the day when we have intraday information? Now, here's Trinity, another railroad stock, and it's probably trading up in sympathy with the prior stock. Now, where did it? Let's just go back here. This one also crossed over on the same date, 18 and 18. Relative strength isn't nearly as good, but it's moving. And here's the fan. Fan's still in a downtrend, but the 3 crossed over the 6 clear back here. And let me make this full screen so we can look at this. Okay, let's just get some lines here. All right, here looks like this was a crossover here. Here's a higher low pivot, and that was surpassed here. Here's a higher low pivot. It was surpassed here with this one, and so on. Now here's a higher low pivot and another chance to get in. These pivots, if you start looking at these charts, they show up everywhere. You know, I'm looking at the whole database here, the universe, but if you just follow a smaller number of stocks and concentrate on that, you won't be overwhelmed. Okay, so what else is up today? Oil and gas services, diversified banks, specialty chemicals, exploration and production, and so on. Let me just go down. Let's look at JBL. And the reason I'm looking at it is volume was less than average yesterday, but the spread was above average, and the close was very high. The crossover was 2 days ago. Look at the relative strength, 94.96. Here's what it's doing today. The intraday range is good. Group is good. Had an effort to rise yesterday, nothing the day before. So let's take a look at it. And let's get this out of the way. I haven't been looking at the weekly charts, but you can tell the weekly chart has been trending up. In fact, it had a price trend change right, well, it would be right in here if you use the 3 weekly high rules, but if you use the daily chart, the price trend change was clear down here. Let me bring this up. Okay, look at these VPA flags down here, and we didn't have any effort to rise until this point right here, but if you use these volume pocket pivots, even though a little less than average, it tells me that the volume was higher anywhere where there's a blue bar than it was any 5 or 10 days prior down volume. So this shows me that they're coming in to this stock, and I have a scan that looks for those pocket pivots. Okay, you can see there's been a lot of stocks that have moved a lot, and because this, the market's been going up. We've we've known that it's been going up now for quite some time. And you can see how valuable it is to be able to look at groups and to go top down when you're prospecting. We know the market's strong. We know what groups are strong, what sectors are strong, and so on. And then you do your prospecting. Okay? So this is after I rebuilt the intraday. It says rebuild user smart groups and industries on this. These are 1 to 15. These are 15 and up. If I click on demand, $15 and up, the combo is going to bring the stocks that are most in demand based upon my combo ranking at this point. This crossed over 11 days ago. It crossed down yesterday. So there was a pullback yesterday. And let's take a look at it today. Buyers are coming back into oil, gas, services, and equipment. No VPA signal. And there was an upthrust the prior day. So let's take a look at this stock. And you can see the pullback here. It looks like a 2-day pullback. Kind of a sloppy looking sequence of candles here. Let's look at the weekly. Oh, the weekly looks decent, starting to move up. Industry group over 5 days is up 4.36%. So a little bit loose in here for me. But anyway, I'm just showing the demand combo, bringing these to the... Look at this. Rivian's number 2 today. Rivian in demand. I find that hard to believe. Me do an alternate 1. But look at this. No supply, no supply. Strength coming in. Confirmation of strength. Effort to rise yesterday. Another one today. But if you look at it right here, it's up against resistance. And then when we look at the weekly chart, you can see the work that needs to be done. I hope Rivian makes it, but they got a tough road in front of them. I think there's a lot of competition, and they're very expensive vehicles. Okay, let's see where I want to go from here. I'm looking at a list here. I'm moving right along, actually. All right, now I want to go to stocks. This is today. These are the ones that are up right now that I built. Now I'm going to bring up the designer, and then I'm going to go back and do something else here. I want to show you that, I'm big on these high relative strength stocks. So I put another user smart group in here for you, which you'll find when you do the installation. End of day relative strength rank is greater than or equal to 90 on both HCSI and Kirkpatrick. These are long-term leaders. So what I did is I'm just in here in this user smart group, but I'm also still over here. So this filter is carried over. So let me see if this is... I just clicked through to it, and here's Boise Cascade. So it's a long-term leader based upon relative strength. So if we look at this, you can see this relative strength is above 92 and 95 on the Kirkpatrick. So let's look at the chart. There's Boise Cascade. And you can see that it looks pretty good, doesn't it? What do we have here? We have a crossover with an effort to rise, and also strength seen returning after a downtrend. An up bar closing near the high. Perfect entry on this stock. And for the most part, while the 3 did stay above the 6, did it right here. Close. It might have gone to the 0 line, but here's another effort to rise, and it's moving up. Here's your... Let's see if I can do this. I wanted to bring up an arrow. I'll just do it over here. I can't remember the shortcut keys. That's my problem. Here's an arrow. Okay. So in this chart, there's their RS rank there and there also. But boy, this is a good-looking stock. And it's a little late to be getting into it now, probably. Yeah, it's an LLUR, Robert. Mark, I just pointed that out. 16 days ago, first of all, you have to discover it if it comes up with a scan. This is 16 days ago is where it crossed over. That's the ideal entry point. So that would be, I think back here, that's more than 16 days. It must have pulled back right here. And this is a re-entry point right here. The ideal place to get in, and it would have shown up in VPA scans or the crossover, would be right here on the effort to rise. And then it, digested that for a long time. But a re-entry, it must have crossed down slightly here. No, it's green there. It didn't cross. So this must be 16 days ago. I should have just counted them. Anyway, Mark, right here is the perfect entry point because you had a test, a low volume test, which means that sellers tested the lows and buyers came in and it closed up near the high of the day. And then it was confirmed the next day and the 3 crossed the 6. Well, this is end of day, but intraday, more than likely it would have shown up on the scan. On those scans, I'm just pulling up 100 stocks at a time on the intraday. I just didn't want to overdo it. But the end of day, it certainly, and then of course you confirm this with the weekly chart. This is a price trend because here's the first higher high. Let's make this, and let me get a line on here. Okay, this is obviously price trend change down, and what you're looking for on the weeklies, if you're using weekly confirmations also, here's your first higher high because it took out that high. Here's your second higher high because it took out that high, and then when it took out this high, here's your third higher high on the weekly chart. Now, that's given up a lot of points. You can do this on the daily charts too. But anyway, you just look at this and you can see there's a heck of a lot of strength in this stock. I don't want the eraser. I want to clear the screen. You notice I talk to myself a lot when I'm doing these webinars. Okay, so my point is you can go into any of these groups in the user smart groups, and you can well, here's the new group. What am I doing? It tells me because I'm in here intraday, it tells me that these stocks are captured within this view right here. Let's look at another long-term winner. Sorry about that. What do we have here? XPO. I don't know this stock, but I wish I would have known it. Okay. Let's go back. Well, just 1 second. I need to look at. There was a pullback and a re-entry point 11 days ago, 10 and 10. So that would have been right here. You can see the 3 pull down below the 6. There's also a pullback on the volume point of control. The 3 crossed over the 6 here with another one of those efforts to rise and also a volume pocket pivot, and it's been on the move. What do we have here? 99 and 97 for the relative strength. These are the stocks in a market like this, which has been strong. You try to buy them on these pullbacks because the momentum is going in your favor. The long-term charts generally dominate. Now, you're not going to find stocks that are just coming out of a downtrend by looking at these groups, these 100, there's 100 stocks in here, by the way. I should have labeled that. But anyway, I'm just pointing out that you can do this intraday and put it, just click on one of these groups over here, and you can transfer. You know, what I'm trying to say is I know that these are really strong stocks here because they're in this high relative strength group and they're showing up within this group, which I just updated. Now, if you want to take this group and not work from here, but work from within the designer, and this is why I did this. I explained it last time. Now, here's the intraday. This is the same group that I'm looking at in the warehouse, but I've rebuilt. This is where the information's coming from. This information right here is being transferred to here. But I want to look at some fundamental screens, let's say, and I want to do it on this group. I can do one of two things. I can rebuild this group by using the alternate make group from list, but that takes time, and I don't want to do that. In fact, instead, I want to go in here, and I want to prospect within this group here, and I'm just going to, let's go down here. I have relative strength greater than 80, revenue increase, Kirk, and HCSI relative strength greater than 80. Now, I didn't get into that group. I have to go from here. So I've got these right here in all securities, but I did this backwards, but I'm going to get there. User smart groups. So I'm looking at these groups moving up and down intraday. So I'm working from here, $15 and up. I want to know if there are any stocks in here that have had a 40% revenue increase and have high relative strength, and there are two of them. And I don't know either one. I don't know this stock, but if I look in here, I can see that the revenue has increased quarter over quarter, at least 40%, 95.6%. Or if I want to just drop down here and look at the EPS increase, these have to have a 40% EPS increase, and I'm in the same group. Here's this browser company. Look at this. It's pulled back and it's starting to move up again. Look at the volume point of control pullback here, and now it turned positive again today. But I'm just saying you can prospect directly from these groups and put any view on there that we want to. So let's do this. Let's look. I'm going to go under earnings momentum. I'm looking for quality momentum and fundamental scans, and there are two of them. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm looking for stocks with a net profit margin of greater than or equal to 10%, a return on equity of greater or equal than 10%, positive percent EPS change compared to the same quarter 1 year ago, and the same for the revenue, and 50% up from the 52-week low. So there are two stocks that meet those qualifications. Here's your earnings increase right here, and it's Allegro Microsystems. This is a pretty tight chart, isn't it? Let's see what the weekly looks like. Wow, big shakeout here, but it's got the three higher highs. The weekly trend is up on this, and I know the earnings are good. I'm just saying, as an example, if you want to scan for other than technicals, I've got plenty of earnings scans in here. Just look at the filters to see what they do, okay? All right. Now let's look at something else. Let's say that I want to look at undercut and rally, or undercut at least. Let's close this up. I have to find it right here. Number 5. This is intraday. The 3 is below the 6 with the fan up. There are 2 stocks in here. Is Opera, which I just looked at, in Squarespace. So I'm looking for the undercut. The 3 is below the 6. Let's look at it. Well, it was below the 6. You can see that it turned positive today. Big shakeout. Turned positive. VPOC turned positive yesterday on this effort to rise. But by scanning for intraday today, I can find stocks like this. Now let's look for stocks where the 3 crossed the 6. Let's do the intraday. You can see that these both crossed with a 2-day window. 0 yesterday, 2 days ago on this one, and here's Jabil again. So what do we have here? Let's read across here. 1 day, 3 days on the VPOC, relative strength 91 and 86, up 3.67% today. It's a steel producer. Effort to rise yesterday. I need to see if I can get over here. And an up bar closing near the high the prior day. This is why I like to use a large monitor, but you can see a lot better on this while I'm doing these webinars. Okay, so low volume test. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the intrinsic and also the risk here. Look at this. Now see, this was down, obviously. Look at the volume coming in here. Here's the effort to rise along with a couple of VPA signals, and it didn't turn positive until right here because it was so beaten down. But the VPOC turned positive here, and then it's been going along. Here's your pullback right here. This is what you're looking for in a strong stock with the 3 above the 6. This is the context. The 3 was above the 6 until right here. And then the pullback, the volume point of control turned positive. The VPOC turned positive. Looks like it didn't do it until right here. But here's a low volume test, confirmation of that test. And effort to rise, effort to rise. What does the weekly look like? It was going down, but it's in an uptrend now. So I'm saying to use these intraday charts here, intraday user smart groups, and just use anything else in here to prospect for them, anything you like. One thing I did here, and this, Mike, are you on? I think you are. I took my suggestion and tried to group some of these together. Now, here's something Mike suggested, gurus, so we'll use gurus. Wyckoff, these are Wyckoff scans here. These are Tom Williams scans. These are all VPA, VSA people. And Karthik Marar is the one who put the code for VPA out into the public domain, and that's what's incorporated into HCSI. So I'm giving him credit on this module, but you can see all of the individual scans are in here. If you like certain scans, like test for supply, you just click on that, and you'll see that test for supply comes up right here. So if you're looking for effort to rise intraday, fan up, you can see that effort to rise comes up here. If you want to concentrate on just certain types of stocks or certain types of signals, they're all in here. I've done a lot of work over the years. Like on test for supply right here, let's see if this is correct. I'm losing my train of thought here. Anyway, test for supply. Here's what I'm looking for. you click on this right here and it tells you, gives you a description of what these VPA flags are. Okay? And if you like looking for tests, go to these 2-day scans, low volume tests followed by effort up. There's nothing here in this group. Let's see if there is one. The next group, nothing. But if I go back up to all securities, you can see that all of these have a up bar closing on the high after a test for supply the prior day. Let's just bring this up. I don't know if it's up to date or not. Yes, it is. But this is powerful stuff. Test for supply, confirmation of that test. But all the scans are in there, and then getting back to these. And we'll be working with these over the next few weeks or however long I continue doing this. If you go into the Wyckoff scans, okay, demand, higher volume, wider spread. This is intraday. Let's go back to that user smart group right here, $15 and up. All of these had these Wyckoff signals yesterday. Above average, very high. Relative strength is poor here. I can see.
One more.
One more what? Paul?
Pardon me, I'm muting.
Oh, you're not talking to me? Okay, I thought you were. That's all right. Anyway.
I wanted another Snickers bar for my wife. Apologies, I'm shutting mute.
Okay, I'll send it to you. Okay, good hearing from you, Paul. Anyway, okay, so all of these had higher volume, wider spread yesterday. So if I bring up Casey's, let's just look at it. I'll close this. Here's Casey's. If I click on yesterday, this information, very high, wide, and high is what's up here. And I can see where this crossover, the volume, point of control, I mean the, what am I trying to say here? The heavy volume blue bar along with the effort to rise. But the crossover was back here and the volume point of control was there. So we're looking, the goal is to find low risk entries, and that's where these columns come in. But just because you miss a trade doesn't mean that these stocks won't continue to go either. Now, I'm running out of time. I want to show you, I want to do a couple more things here. I'll stay on a little bit longer because this is interesting. What I did is I put in, and I'm going to come back and we'll talk about these in future sessions, but instant watch list. These are so you don't have to spend a time looking for low volume trades or low risk trades, I should say. Here's the undercut end of day after a pullback. Now I'm sorting on this. This is percentage price change 1 day. These are from last night. So let's just take a look at this. Am I in the right place here? Okay, here's the intraday right here. So you can see that most of these are up today. And these are low risk trades because the days were down 4 days on Applied Digital Corp and on the VPOC down 2 days, but it's up 7.24% today. So let's just take a look at this. Here's your test. Here's a confirmation of that test today. Inexpensive stock, but the information is right here that it was down, and now because it's an intraday scan, I mean because I have the intraday information, I can see that it's there's a possibility of getting into it. Let's look at another chart here. I'm going to stay on a little bit longer because I want to get through this stuff. Okay, look at this. The weekly chart's really strong on this. This is a pullback three red candles or green candles here. VPOC turned positive, and the 3 is crossing the 6 today. So this is an end of day which found several good candidates today. I don't have time to go through all of these, but here's VPA flags yesterday. You can see VPA flags on all these. Intraday change, there's about 50-50 on these. Here is, well, see, you'd gotten scalped on this one today. But the signal's there, and this is from last night, a low-risk entry, relatively low-risk entry. But those who chased it got caught on this one. Let's look at one more in here. But you can track these during the day. Now, here's an excellent one, which came up yesterday with a low volume test. There's a confirmation of that test today and an effort to rise coming off of a long base. Let's look at the weekly. Oh, wow. Very strong on the weekly. Hesitation through here. It's been reaccumulating. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing before we leave. I want to show you that as I go into the designer, I'm going to use this right here, the group performance analysis. And I've been, if you're an Insider Club member, I've been tracking these smart groups recently. And they're in the instant watch list. And I have June here. You can see there's a bunch of stuff in here. I'm going to go back to last Friday, which was the end of day watch list, fan up, 3 cross to 6, and so on. By using this and using the opening price on Monday, the 26th, and the closing price yesterday on Wednesday. And I'll make this 100. This number doesn't really matter. I'm going to run these, and I'm going to choose the groups. The groups that I'm choosing are everything's from the 26th. There's a couple of VPA flag groups and a couple of one pullback day and also a crossover day, the 3 crossing the 6. So I'm going to run this. And what it does is it pulls up this HTML page. And did I get this correct? No, I didn't. What did I do wrong? Oh, I know. I have a filter on. See, even I make that mistake after all these years. So let's run it again. It better be the filter. I don't have any other answers. Okay, let's run it again. Aha, that's better. I'm going to get an arrow in here so we can point some of these out. All right, so here's the S&P over that time period through yesterday's close, up 0.87. The 3 groups, the instant watch list, fan up 3 and 6 cross after the pullback was up 5.07 with 23 gainers, 2 losers. The instant watch list fan up setting up after the pullback, 22 and 3, up 3.60%. And the VPA flag fan up, 22 and 3. These are the percentage gainers. And then fan up, long-term trend up, which is a slight variation on the other group. It didn't do quite as well. Well, actually, they had 94% gainers, but the percentage wasn't as great. Okay, so for those 3 days at least, these were working. Now, let's clear this out, and I'll scroll down the list a little bit. And I have to get back to this so I can control this. You can see the stocks and what the gains were. I believe IONQ may have been a buyout. Let's take a look at it. IONQ. No, it wasn't. Wow, great. You can see a big move here. Big percentage move because it's a low price stock. Weekly's a little bit choppy in here, but now it's strong. But anyway, it picked that one up on the scan. Now let me see if I can find my results again. But if you run this, if you select the groups and you have this information, if you're downloading it from the Insider Club, you can go in and see how these work, or if you make your own groups, you can see how they work, how the stocks work. But generally, these did pretty well. Let's see, Goodyear Tire and Rubber up 6.93% and so on. You can just scroll down here. It's all laid out for you. I don't really have time to cover all this in depth, but you can see that we have the ability to track all of this information. Now, in the future, and I don't know how many more webinars I'm going to do. I'll do a few more, of course. But right now, I'm at a place where I've gotten most of these group warehouse views standardized, so I can quickly see where these stocks are. I want to show you one more thing, come to think of it. Now these Wyckoff scans. Let's bring this Joby. Well, let me get a different one. How about Griffin? No. Okay, yeah, Griffin's good. Now, I have a chart in here, and it works, generally works. If you go down here to the Wyckoff VFB charts under demand, I have a candlestick, and this is just a bar, but what I've done is I've attached VPA flags, or VPA bars to each one of these charts. Now this is the group, and each one of these colors represents something. So I can look back and I can see what the VPA and the Wyckoff signals were for each of these stars. Now I've got it up at the top, kind of hard to read. It's better to edit the indicator. Now, where do I have that? Oh, click up here on the pencil. And then look over here, and it's going to tell you what these are. So this is light blue today. Do I see light blue in here anywhere? Right there. Low supply of the stock. Low volume, high close, below average spread. So this stock went up today. Volume was low. You can hardly see the volume, but it closed near the high. So that means there's a lack of supply. There's more buyers and sellers. But this is a chart I'll refer to every now and then when I want to see, how a stock is doing based upon the Wyckoff signals. Now, light green, let's click on this again, or I can look up here. Light green, wider spread on lower volume. So, right here, wider spread on lower volume, which means there's lack of supply. And the group's going up. What do you think of that? It works pretty well. Doesn't work all the time, but anyway, just gives you a nice visual because you have the group here, and you can see what these bars mean according to the Wyckoff information. Let's go over here. I'm going to do one more, and then I have to end this. So I'm going under Gurus, Wyckoff, demand scans. So these were lower volume, lack of supply. You can see that these columns here change. I have all this stuff built into the filters, but these close very high. So it tells me there's lack of supply on this, but there's also poor relative strength. Let's look at this one right here. I don't know if it's up or down today, but we're going to find out. That's not very well. Right here, the yellow bar is what represents this information here. There was lack of supply and a big move up today on a $4 stock. Let's find one more that's got a little. Okay. How about a $300? How about a $160 stock? Low, below average, high. Relative strength is not good, but we're going to look at it anyway. Okay, so this yellow bar yesterday, that's represented right here, and today it tells me that because of lack of supply, it's going to go up. Not always, but these are pretty interesting scans, and they're all under Wyckoff. There's demand and supply scans. These are all things that we can cover over the next few weeks and go into depth on them. All right. Okay, I'm going to have to call it a day. I've got to go out with some friends tonight. My wife and I are both finally well again after a long bout with COVID, so we're going to go out and celebrate a little bit. Any questions? Thank you, Robert. Thanks, Mike. Mike, you like this layout a little bit better? I'm trying to. You play with it, see what you think. Any input that anybody has, just call me or send me an email, and I'll work on it. But you can see the power of this program when we combine the scans and then the user groups, user groups that we can make ourselves. It's tremendous, and I'm just really scratching the surface of this. Thanks, Robert and Tom. Okay, I'll talk to you all later, and thanks, George. I'm going to stop sharing and end it. Thanks a lot. Bye now. Yeah, any suggestions, just let me know.